My name is John Wipfli and I'm the chef and owner of the Minnesota Spoon. Today we are going to be cooking a raw kale and chicken Paillard salad, and that'll be available in your local crate boxes. I'm going to take all my produce over to the sink, give it a quick wash, and then we'll start cooking. So now that our kale is clean, we're going to cut out these ribs. They don't taste very good, they don't eat very well, they're kind of chewy, so we're going to get rid of those. And then we're going to get this leafy part out and just cut that into about 1 inch ribbons. All right, now that there's a bunch of clean kale, we're going to finely chop this. Just run it through that big pile of kale and you'll get pretty even sized chunks. This is about the size piece you want. It's just edible, bite-sized piece, fits on a fork real nicely. All right, some good kale. So I'm gonna cut this lemon in half, just take a little bit of lemon juice, strain out the seeds with my hand, give it a good pinch of salt, and then just work that into the kale for a little bit. So we're gonna let this sit for 20 to 30 minutes before we do our chicken breast, and we're gonna have a softer, more tender, way better tasting piece of kale. So the next thing we're gonna do here is start our vinaigrette. To make that vinaigrette, or make that vinaigrette base, we're gonna use shallot, lemon juice, anchovy, and mustard. And we're gonna dice our shallot, and then just let the shallot macerate for 10 to 15 minutes in the lemon juice to kind of soften those harsh onion flavors. It'll make a lot more mellow vinaigrette. So now that the shallot is diced, you want to put it into a small bowl and cover it with lemon juice and the anchovy and the mustard like we talked about. And you're just going to set this aside right next to the kale and let it marinate for 10 to 15 minutes. If you happen to have a hand juicer, it's just as easy to put a lemon into that hand juicer and juice it into the bowl. I like to use my hands just because it's a lot quicker and it's one less tool that I have to take care of in my kitchen. Combine them and set them aside to marinate. So one other thing to add to the vinaigrette right at the end, or the vinaigrette base right at the end, is 1 clove of garlic. I like garlic in all my food. It's good for you, and it just adds a lot of punch. And when we're dealing with kale, extra punches, it's good to have in your salad. So slice this guy nice and thin. So for our fresh component, we're going to use flat leaf parsley. To chop this parsley, you just want to pick all the leaves off the stems. A little stem isn't bad for you, but you don't want to get too much in there. Set the stems aside. The best way to chop it is to group it into a pile, and then you want to compact it as much as possible. And you want to set your knife right along the parsley, the edge of the parsley, while you're holding it together with your fingers, and just release a little bit of parsley as you run your knife, and you're going to get a perfect small chiffonade, and you won't have to do more cuts than necessary. So the next step to preparing this vinaigrette, or this second base, is pouring an oil over the top of your chopped herbs. I like to use grapeseed oil. I use avocado oil. Olive oil will work, or pretty much any oil you have in your pantry. And you just want to pour enough to cover all the herbs, and letting this sit for a little bit is really going to perfume that flavor of the parsley into the oil itself. We're going to mix our two vinaigrette ingredients. So we're going to take the mustard and anchovy, shallot and lemon component and pour it into the parsley and oil component, and that'll complete our vinaigrette. At this point, you can just give it a nice stir and then taste it to see if it has enough salt in it, and add more salt if you'd like. All right, next step for the salad is we have 2 types of nuts. We have pine nuts and we have almonds. Pine nuts are a good size for your salad already, so we're going to leave these whole. The almonds, however, we're gonna roughly chop them. So once those are chopped, just grab a pan. It can be, I'm starting with a cold pan. You can start with a warm pan. It doesn't really matter. We're just going to put it on medium heat, make sure not to burn the nuts, and just get a nice toast on them, and it'll just make them a little nuttier tasting. It'll bring out their full flavor and release some of their oils. We're going to add a little salt to the pan, not too much, and just a little bit of cracked black pepper as well. If you have a wooden spoon, just kind of stir them around so they don't get burnt on any edges. All right, once these guys are toasted, you can see that they have a little bit more of a brown color to them. You can also see that I put a little too much oil in here. So to rectify that, we're just going to put the nuts onto a paper towel and let the paper towel soak in all that extra oil. So don't be afraid to use a little more in the pan. because you can always get rid of it later. So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our chicken breast and we're going to butterfly them in half. So to do that, we're just going to take the chicken breast and put it on a cutting board and take your knife and run it into the breast almost to the other side of it. So we're going to go just until we get to that point. We're going to do that with both of them. I don't have a meat mallet, so I use wine bottles, or in this case, a vermouth bottle. And any bottle will do, just make sure you don't break the bottle onto the chicken. So just take it by the handle and gently pound out the chicken breast. And what you're looking for is a chicken breast that's probably gotten about 1/3 or 33% larger. All right, so next steps here, you just want to season your chicken breast with a little bit of salt on both sides, or season it on one side, and then once you put it in the pan, you can season it on the other side. Add about 1 tablespoon of oil to the pan, or just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. And we're going to do 1 chicken breast at a time. And you can see that it's not sticking, and once we know that it's not sticking, we're just going to turn the heat down to a medium to make sure that we don't develop too many colors. We're not trying to sear the breast here, we're just trying to cook it through. It looks like it is cooked all the way through, and it took about 3 minutes in total. The chicken breasts are now cooked, and we have a freshly cleaned cutting board because we obviously don't want to have any cross-contamination between raw chicken and cooked chicken. So we're going to take our chicken and we're going to put it back on the cutting board. We're going to take slices out of it, and then we're going to start making our salad. Take some of your kale. We're just going to test this kale one more time to see if it's softened at all. And this definitely has softened a little bit. I am going to just rub that salt and lemon into the kale a little bit more to help that process along, but it's pretty much there. So I'm going to take 2 big spoonfuls of the vinaigrette. Make sure you stir it well before you add it, otherwise all the oil and the vinegars will separate. This is definitely something where you can use your judgment. You don't have to go exactly verbatim on the recipe. Taste things as you cook them and just go by what your gut says, and you usually end up with a better product. When I'm cooking at home, I think it's really crucial to be able to feel your food, and it just gives you a better idea of what you're doing than trying to use a tool for everything. So now that I have my 2 salads here, I'm going to put a little bit of chicken on it. Doesn't have to be super pretty looking, just kind of pile it on top there. Give it a nice drizzle of the leftover vinaigrette that you have to help make that chicken a little more moist. Give it a little more flavor. Then give these guys a healthy dose of nuts. You probably have a few leftover nuts, but that is just fine. You can put those on the table for snacking later or anything you'd like. The last step to finish these salads is just taking a healthy amount of Parmesan and piling it over the top of the salad. And there we have it, raw kale salad and chicken Paillard. Check me out at theminnesotaspoon.com, and I hope you enjoy this recipe.